Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. New week, new theme. This week we're looking at bad songs, which, as you guys know, I'm not going to be ragging on these songs. In fact, I'm actually going to try the opposite. This week is more of an attempt at trying to make it so that there's nothing positive I can say about a song, nothing to take away from it. It's really challenging my idea that there's something to engage with or learn with every work of art out there. So while yes, there might be some objectively bad songs in this week, I'm really hoping to help everybody walk away from this and understand that even things that are not super palatable or well created still have lessons to be learned in them. So today we're going to be starting with a group called the Shaggs. The song is called My Pal Foot Foot. Never heard of any of this. However, the blurb over here is interesting. It states in 1968, three sisters from New Hampshire strapped on their instruments and declared themselves the Shaggs. At that moment began a peculiar tale that would last far beyond the group's 5-year run. The sisters played in the group on the insistence of their father, who was convinced they were going to make it big. Well, that puts us in a very interesting mindset. Late 60s, and being that this is suggested to me for Bad Songs Week, I'm going to assume that these three sisters were not entirely talented. But let's dive into this, see what's going on. We got the Shaggs, My Pal Foot Foot. Okay. I want to start by saying this isn't a bad song. It really isn't. Um, when you look at the core part of it, not the intro, not the outro, not that drum transition in the middle, when you look at the main element, the guitar and vocals harmonizing, well, not even harmonizing, playing the exact same line, the simple chordal ideas going on behind that, and the rather standard um, drum kit section behind that. Just this very basic concept. It has a catchy hook to it. It is reinforced by having both lead instruments play the same part, and the vocal delivery is very calming, very what's that? Palatable, and very, I don't want to say vulnerable, but approachable. Right? There's something very, well, I'm just gonna get to it. There's something very kid show about the vocalist. Kid show host, I think I should use the term. And the idea of a pal named Foot, I think would be phenomenal. I think this would be a really great song to put in the middle of a children's entertainment show where a puppet or CGI character or whatever. I'm kind of thinking more of like a Sesame Street setup. She goes to visit her pal Foot, and he's not there, and that's like the big part of the episode or of this segment. Like, where's Foot? Now we gotta find Foot. And I think her vocals lend to that very well. The catchiness and simplicity in the music work for that. There's definitely the performance aspect that needs work. The performance is a bit rough, and it could probably use with a little bit of shaping up. But I think the core idea here works very well. It was just utilized in the wrong situation. I don't know what 1968 was like, but if their father was the one who pushed them to do this entire thing, and pushed them to be what I assume is a rock group at the time, the thing is that it was a good decision, and he might have been right that they might have made it big with a little bit more practice, possibly, if they were going in a different direction. Right? If I tell you that I'm playing the most metal thing you've ever heard, come see my concert, you show up, and I'm playing bubblegum pop, you're going to be disappointed. It's not what you're expecting. It really doesn't matter how good the performance is at that point. I have subverted your expectations in a negative way. And for these people, the Shaggs, to present themselves in what I kind of assume would have been rock at the time, right? Something along the lines of the Beatles. Um, I think people might have been a little underwhelmed. The style is there, but the content is not. And I'm coming at that retroactively. I don't really know what acceptable lyrics were for the teenage and young 20s crew in the late 60s. I don't know if this is actually something that would have appealed to them. Thinking back on some of the stuff the Beatles sang about, nowadays I kind of say, hey, that's some children's cartoon imagination level stuff right there, but when they sing about it, it kind of isn't, right? I think it connected with a lot of adults back then, or, teenagers, young 20 somethings as well. So it's very possible that I'm misreading this being, uh, you know, 60 years displaced, 50, 55 years displaced. Um, but that's the kind of angle that I'm seeing it now with my retrospective goggles on, viewing at it from 2022, is that I could honestly see this working for kids entertainment. It needs shaping up, but it's not a bad song by any means. It's just not what it appears that they've presented themselves as. But I do want to get into this other side of it. And I think this might be a bit of a short episode, but we'll see. We'll see. I want to get into this other side of it though, because I think there are some really interesting avant garde ideas in here too. Within the first 30 seconds, we move through 6 different drum feels. And I think this is one of my favorite parts of the track because we also saw it at the end and we saw it in the middle. Basically, anytime that they let the drummer lead, we got some really interesting ideas. Um, and we're going to get to another topic in a little bit, creativity or innovation through simplicity. I'm going to touch on that in a bit. But I do want to bring up this idea because I genuinely think that these drum-led sections are interesting. We talked about this on the Messiaen episode last week when I said, if a lesser composer or a lesser known composer released Chromochromy, I think that's what it was called, Chronochromy, would the music world accept it the same way as when Messiaen released it? You know, do people put it in high regard because it comes from an established composer, or is the music innately good and would anybody who listened to it and didn't know the composer praise it regardless? And I think that's where some of this comes from, like knowing the background that these were not uh, particularly strong musicians on this track. I understand that these ideas at the beginning came from a lack of maybe knowledge about musical composition or possibly a lack of skill. They're very simple ideas all throughout the song, and it might not be that they were specifically simplistic for simplicity reason, like they aimed for that. It's that that was the width of their skill, right? I don't know for a fact. This is only the first song I've heard from these all, but that's kind of the vibe I get from them, especially given all of the I can't even say that, can I? I was gonna say the vibe I get from all of the mistakes, but how many bands have we listened to where I praise the mistakes? And it's because I come from the angle that anything done in a song must be done intentionally because I know who the band are. I know what they're striving for. I don't know who the Shaggs are. I don't know what kind of sound they're striving for. Given from this little description here, I get the picture of a bunch of people who were just beginning to learn their instruments. Maybe they didn't even have a passion for it. Maybe it was completely driven by a parent. Went out and bought them the gear and said, "You're going to make it big." And they really weren't passionate about it. But either way, they didn't have the skill at this particular time to play anything complex. So we get this song. That's the image I'm getting. So I'm coming at it from that angle. But if somebody released this that was a big Midwestern emo kind of band, or not indie rock? Indie rock, that's what I want to go with. If an indie rock band released something similar to this, faults and all, I think we'd be praising it. Listen to how they utilize simplicity in the intro, how we move through so many different drum sections. Listen to the way that he flubs some mistakes and that they don't always come in on time and the multiple vocal lines are delayed by a second. Think about what that means in the presence of the rest of the track and what we can deduce from that compared to the lyrics. But because this is Bad Song Week, my mind is already in this mentality that nothing in here is intentional. And while I'm probably right with that, it's also not fair. This is what we talked about with chronochromy. Does who create an art, that is worded terribly, does knowing who created an art change the art itself? I say no, but we're humans. We have biases. We are going to have different biases towards music when we have the context around it, and I don't think that's fair. I'm going to treat this song, and probably all the songs this week, differently than what I normally treat songs, especially when it comes to ideas like imperfections. And it makes me want to redo this entire section now. Anyways, going back to the drumming, I want to point out that the intro I find to be really interesting. We shift through quite a few different vibes and feelings, atmospheres, even just little changes between snare and tom and cymbal drastically change up the feeling of those sections. Not even to mention that the different emphasized time signature. Basically, what notes the drummer chooses, or what beats the drummer chooses to emphasize in each of these ideas. It's also very avant-garde to not have any repetitions, to present a 1 or 2 bar idea and then move on. Usually shorter ideas like this are looped, repeated, but not here. We have a simple short concept and we move on, and then we move on, and then we move on. And 8, 16 bars later, we've moved through a bunch of different ideas already, not really sticking around to any of them. And I want to emphasize again, with another band, especially a band more established, I would present this as beautiful avant-garde writing. This would be something that I would talk about and focus on thematically. Why did the drummer do this? And I'm not going to do that here because of preconceived notions I have about this group. I want to really drill that home here. I'm going to try to lighten up on it the rest of the week because I have a feeling it's going to pop up more often. But, the things that we believe about a band going into them have control and influence over how we listen to the music. It's not possible to listen to music in a vacuum. But I think it's something we should try to get to, especially with stuff that we're negative towards. Stuff that we're positive towards, sure, read into the context. I think it really helps with it. But when we're allowing negativity to paint our view of music, I think it's time to step back and see if we're evaluating the artist or evaluating the song. So yeah, I think I'm going to leave that where it is. We also see drumming though in the middle that I think changes up some of the feeling, vibes, rhythms of stuff, and it's just really interesting to hear that. Not just that we have these moments where the rhythmic structure of the song is so wildly disrupted repeatedly, but that we also allow the drummer to dictate these entire moments. Our intro is our drummer taking us through a few different ideas before landing on the main one that we go into. It's almost like going through like several portals before landing on the universe we're supposed to be on, that we're supposed to be exploring, right? We're on a universal tour, and we're going through a few universes to get to the one we want to, that we're on a tour for, that a tour guide's taking us to. And once we get there, we stay there for a while. And it's interesting that in this situation, the drummer is the tour guide, and the atmosphere is just the drums. Nothing else helps with these sections. Even at the end, our outro is purely drums. We walk down the kit by pitch. We start with the snare and then to the highest tom, and we go down to the lowest tom, and we finish on a kick. It is this downward descent completely driven by an isolation of the drumming. It is so unusual that I have to give praise for it here. And I'm really curious what led to this. I'm wondering if it happens on other tracks as well, because it's a very unusual way to write a song, especially in the late 60s. There isn't really a lot of music I can think of where the drums were leaders. We have more and more modern bands where the drums are playing a more melodic role, but especially back here at the beginning of rock and roll, much like in jazz, the drum's job is to keep everyone together. And it's so cool. It put a smile on my face, I think. So I was smiling internally, at least, so many times for the drummer to get this spotlight. And it's little simple ideas, but I think it works well. Again, in an educational setting, maybe if we had paired, an idea about time signature to this, and we can count the time signature in each of these sections, or count the beats between um, accented hits, and see a pattern there before we get into the catchy song about finding foot, I think this could really be turned into a fascinating edutainment song for kids, particularly about friendship while learning music along the way. Like, it can cover so much stuff about child development. It really is a shame that it was tried to be pushed, from at least from my limited understanding, as some sort of pop culture phenomenon. Um, Let me see if we got lyrics here, because I think this is going to be the interesting part. All right, is there anything else? Um, I mean, there's obviously mistakes all throughout here. I already touched on one, which is the imperfection with the vocalists. Right, I think at least two of the vocalists were singing at any given time, and uh, there were times when one would come in early, the other one would come in late or whatever, and we'd have this discrepancy there. There were sometimes even when the guitar and the vocalist, which I think are the same person possibly, one came in late, one came in before the other, which means it's the same person, so that's interesting. Unless like the lead guitarist and the lead vocalist were opposite. The lead vocalist played rhythm guitar and the lead guitarist did backup vocals. That would have been interesting. Um, but yeah, so there's some imperfections there. The drumming is very lackluster. There's a lack of energy behind it, right? And to me, that shows someone who's a bit timid with the performance. They don't quite have the energy or the passion or the training or just the confidence to really play as if they're confident in what they're saying. It feels like they're a bit shy or again unconfident about their performance. And they also could have been tired, which is something that just popped into my mind, being it's the late 60s. We're probably recording on tape, so one shot, right? And if you're not perfect players, and you don't have the skill necessarily to perform this perfectly, something tells me we could have been on take 6, 7, 8, and they're just tired of doing it. Or maybe they're only on take 3, but they've done 5 takes for each song prior to this, if they're recording an album. And this was just the best of the batch kind of vibe. So there's a lot of things that could go into that, but the drums are just lacking that conviction. The production, which I notice is their father, maybe brother. Yeah, it's their father junior, so I'm going to say son. The production on here is all over the place. It definitely puts the lead instrumentation, the vocals and the guitar, in the spotlight, pans them left and right. Pretty standard stuff for the time. The drums are just a hair bit quiet, and the second guitar and second vocals are overshadowed almost entirely by the lead. So there's definitely some production woes going on here as well. But again, like I said, a little bit of touching up could have taken this song a long way. Let's dive into the lyrics real quick, just out of curiosity. My pal's name is Foot. He likes to roam. I never find his home. I go to his house. Whoa. Okay. Okay, so the I don't even want to say, I mean, inexperienced maybe. This looks like it's their second album though. But anyways, I never find his home, but I go to his house and knock on his door, and people come out and say he don't live here anymore. Uh okay. Then we have a repetition of that chorus line. My pal Foot likes to roam, but he has no home. Where will he go? What will he do? Oh, Foot, I wish I could find you. I've looked here, I've looked there, I've looked everywhere. Why can't I find you? Where can you be? Why won't you answer me? Wherever you are, I want you to come home with me. That's interesting. I don't have time to roam. I have things to do. I have to go home. Where are you? If Foot didn't like to roam. He would still have a place to dwell. Please answer me. I know where you are. You're behind that tree. Yeah, right? So, a lot of this, the final line, please come to me now that you're here. Won't you come home? Promise me this, that you'll never roam again. So, to me, it feels like that a lot of this would work better with a visualization. It seems that there's not a strong consistency between along the story in the lyrics themselves. There's events happening between the stanzas. And again, this is something that could be explained in in the visuals of a kid's cartoon. Where is he? Oh, he's behind that tree. Well, you said you looked everywhere. Why didn't you see him? But, if we had a puppet or something hiding behind a tree or like going around a bush while like the singer's coming around the other side, and it's kind of like this cat and mouse kind of game going on, this could be a fun children's program. It really could. A bit more production work, tighten it up a little bit, maybe add a little bit more musicality to it. And bam, you got a fantastic kid story right here that already lends itself well to the visual language of a children's program. I think this could have been a big hit. And, I just think it's a shame because there is, like, even, normally when we get to the lyrics, I say, this is what the song's talking about. Let's pair that back with the musical themes. Let's see if we have a cohesion here. And I think we do. Like I mentioned, there is this kind of cheery, bright, approachable vocal style that's going on that's paired with easy to understand music that mimics the vocal melody. Fits very well with kids songs. Stuff that nursery rhymes or what Coco Melon is doing these days. And this pairs well with the simplicity in the lyrics. There's a lot of simple to learn words here. There's a lot of repetition of words, and there's a kind of strong rhyming pattern that goes with helping kids learn it. And there's a very static rhythmic scheme that goes in every single stanza. Most stanzas, I would say. It stands to be a very catchy kids song, and all we got to do is manipulate it a little bit to make it about friendship and possibly respecting people's boundaries. This Foot obviously does not want the narrator to find them. uh, they're hiding everywhere. They'll go into anybody else's house to get away from him. They're fine with anybody else's presence in their life, not the singers though. Um, and of course, the singer is overbearing. Now that you're here, promise me you'll never again roam. But Foot loves to roam. It is right there in the chorus. He always likes to roam. So, this isn't a bad song. It's not great in its current state, and it was marketed the wrong way, and it kind of is, it's not good as it is. But it really would not take a lot of work to turn it around into something else. And I think that's one of the big things I want to promote this week is that there really aren't bad songs. This is great. It's not great for an adult audience. It's not perfect production-wise or performance-wise, but both of those can be addressed. We can have practices. We can get up to snuff to perform, to get the chops that we need to perform this. We can tighten up some of the stranger, more odd composition areas if that's something they want to do. I still like the drum bits. They're odd, but I think they work. And, we can always re-record it, remaster it, remix it, whatever, and get a better song out of it. It really is the marketing and the lack of experience as musicians and probably as a producer here that kind of condemned it to the world of bad music. But I think it just was released out of its element. And those are my thoughts on the Shaggs My Pal Foot. This is where you guys come in, hit me up with your comments. Let me know what you thought of this track. there's anything that stood out to you, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, go ahead and drop that stuff down there in the comment box. Above that, in the description, there is a link to Linktree. Takes you to this menu, has everything related to the channel. You can pick up some merch, join the Patreon, and vote on future themes and songs. You can follow me on Twitter, join the Discord community, submit special selections. There's just a lot of stuff there. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. All right. Wow, 30 minutes. Did not think I was going to make it that long, but I did have a lot to say. We got one more video that came out a minute ago. It's our special selection for today. Otherwise, see you back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of bad songs. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.